Captain Elena Vasquez looked out the window of her ship as they moved through space toward Nexus Prime. She had dreamed of this moment her whole life. Humanity was finally going to meet other intelligent life forms from across the galaxy. The Galactic Confederation had existed for over 2,000 years. 7 different alien species worked together, sharing trade routes and protecting each other from dangers in space. Each species had something special that earned them a place in this great alliance. The HFY were master strategists. Their 4-armed bodies moved slowly, but their minds could plan battles that lasted for years. They thought about every possible outcome before making a move. The Zephyrians looked like tall, thin crystals that walked upright. They created technology that seemed like magic to most other species. Their cities floated in the clouds of gas giant planets. The Moldak were warriors born to fight. They stood 8 feet tall with thick armor-like skin and sharp claws. For them, dying in battle was the greatest honor anyone could achieve. The other species each had their own gifts too. The Veltar could read minds and share thoughts without speaking. The Archeons lived for thousands of years and remembered history better than any computer. The Quilix could change their body shape to fit into any space or environment. Then there were humans. Elena knew what the other species thought about her people. Humans had no special powers. They were not particularly strong or fast. They had only recently learned how to travel faster than light speed. What could they possibly offer to such an advanced group? The human ship landed on Nexus Prime 3 days later. Elena walked down the ramp wearing her best uniform. Behind her came the rest of the human diplomatic team. Dr. James Wright was their chief scientist. Colonel Mike Torres commanded their small security force. Sarah Chen served as their intelligence officer. The greeting ceremony took place in a massive hall that could hold 10,000 beings. Representatives from all 7 species sat in sections arranged around a central speaking area. Elena had studied their customs for months, but seeing them all together still amazed her. The HFY delegation moved their 4 arms in complex patterns as they spoke. Their voices sounded like musical instruments, playing different notes at the same time. The Moldaks stomped their feet and roared when they approved of something. The Zephyrians made soft chiming sounds that somehow Elena could understand as words. Chancellor Vextar, a tall Veltar with silver skin, led the meeting. His species could read emotions and thoughts, which made them natural diplomats. He opened his mind to Elena and spoke directly into her thoughts. "Welcome, humans of Earth. We greet you with interest and curiosity. Your species has traveled far to reach us." Elena spoke out loud, knowing that all the species could understand her words through their translation systems. "Thank you, Chancellor. We come seeking friendship and hoping to learn from your great civilization." Admiral Takmor of the Moldak stood up. His massive form cast shadows across half the room. When he spoke, his voice boomed like thunder. "What do these soft creatures bring to our alliance? They have no great weapons. They show no signs of advanced technology. Their ships barely manage to reach our space." Other delegates shifted uncomfortably. The Moldak were known for speaking their minds without concern for politeness. Dr. Wright stepped forward. "We may not have the greatest technology or the strongest bodies, but humans have survived and grown on a world that tried to kill us every day. We learned to work together, to solve problems, and to never give up when things got difficult." A Quilix delegate, whose body looked like flowing water in the shape of a person, spoke with a voice like waves on a beach. "Survival is common among all our species. What makes human survival special?" Elena thought carefully before answering. "Perhaps nothing makes us special. But we would like the chance to prove that we can contribute something useful to your alliance." The debate continued for hours. Some species argued that humans were too primitive. Others worried that humans might cause problems. The HFY wanted to study human behavior more carefully before making any decisions. Finally, Chancellor Vextar called for a vote. "The Confederation offers provisional membership to humanity. You will be assigned to patrol duties along trade routes in the outer systems. This will allow us to observe how your species works with others." Elena felt disappointed but tried not to show it. Patrol duties were basically guard work that kept them far away from important Confederation business. Still, it was better than being rejected completely. Admiral Throckmore laughed loudly. Guard duty for the new species. Perhaps they can chase away pirates with their primitive weapons. After the ceremony, Elena and her team were given rooms in the diplomatic quarter of Nexus Prime. That evening, Sarah Chen spread intelligence reports across the table in Elena's quarters. Captain, I've been studying the recent activity reports from the outer systems, Sarah said. Something doesn't add up about these pirate attacks. Elena looked at the data that Sarah had organized on her computer tablet. What do you mean? Look at the timing and locations. These raids follow patterns that don't make sense for normal pirates. They hit targets with specific types of cargo, but they leave valuable items behind. And the attacks always happen when the local patrol ships are at the furthest point of their routes. Colonel Torres leaned over to look at the information. That would require inside knowledge of patrol schedules and cargo manifests. Either someone is helping these pirates, or they're not really pirates at all. Dr. Wright adjusted his glasses and studied the reports more carefully. The Confederation Intelligence Services have much better resources than we do. If there was really a pattern here, wouldn't they have seen it already? Sarah shook her head. Not necessarily. They might be looking at each species' data separately. I combined reports from all 7 species and looked for connections across the different systems. Sometimes an outside perspective can see things that people inside the system miss. Elena stared at the star map that showed all the attack locations. A cold feeling grew in her stomach as she began to see what Sarah had discovered. These aren't random attacks. Someone is testing Confederation defenses and gathering information about our capabilities. That's what I think too, Sarah said quietly. The question is, who would want that kind of information? And what are they planning to do with it? Elena knew they had to report this to Confederation Command, even though she doubted anyone would take their analysis seriously. Humans had been part of the Alliance for less than a week. Who would listen to their theories about galactic security? But as she looked at the pattern of attacks spreading slowly toward the more populated systems, Elena knew they had to try. Something was coming, and the Confederation needed to be ready. 3 weeks later, Sarah Chen's worst fears came true. The first alarm sounded at 0300 hours on the human ship Terra's Dawn. Elena rushed to the bridge, still wearing her sleeping clothes. Colonel Torres was already there, his face pale as he stared at the communication screen. Captain, we're getting reports from the Kepler station. Something has attacked the Tau Ceti colonies, Torres said. Elena felt her heart racing. The Tau Ceti system had 4 planets, with over 50 million people living there. What kind of attack? Pirates? Sarah appeared at Elena's side, holding her tablet. No, ma'am. This is something completely different. The entire system has gone dark. No communications, no energy signatures, nothing. Dr. Wright joined them on the bridge. He moved to the science station and began scanning for any signals from the Tau Ceti direction. I'm not detecting anything from that area of space. It's like the system doesn't exist anymore. Enter 1. I'm not detecting $5. Arlauf. Elena opened a communication channel to Confederation Command on Nexus Prime. The face of Admiral Kessistra, a Zephyrian officer, appeared on the screen. Her crystal-like features looked worried. Captain Vasquez, we were about to contact you. All patrols are being recalled to defend the core systems. We have lost contact with 3 outer colonies in the past 6 hours. What do you mean lost contact? Elena asked. Admiral Kessistra's image flickered as interference affected the communication. Our deep space sensors detected a massive fleet approaching from beyond the galactic rim. The ships are unlike anything in our databases. When they reached the outer colonies, the planets simply stopped sending signals. Elena felt cold fear growing in her chest. Are you saying the entire populations are gone? We don't know. We sent reconnaissance ships to investigate, but they never returned. Even our fastest scouts with the best stealth technology disappeared without sending any final reports. Chancellor Vextar's voice suddenly joined the communication. Captain Vasquez, please report to Nexus Prime immediately. The Confederation Council is meeting in emergency session. The journey back to the capital world took 2 days at maximum speed. When Elena and her team arrived, they found chaos in the normally calm halls of government. Alien diplomats rushed through corridors carrying urgent messages. The peaceful atmosphere had been replaced by fear and confusion. In the main council chamber, representatives from all 7 species argued loudly. Elena had never seen such disorder in Confederation meetings before. Admiral Throckmore stood in the center, his massive Moldoc form dominating the space around him. "We must attack immediately. Send every ship we have to meet these invaders in open battle." The Kethvar senior delegate, General Sultak, moved his forearms in sharp, negative gestures. "Attacking without information is suicide. We know nothing about their capabilities or numbers. We must gather intelligence first." Professor Zindela, representing the Zephyrians, made soft chiming sounds that translated as disagreement. "Our scientists should study the technology that could make entire star systems disappear. Perhaps we can develop defenses." Elena listened to the arguments for over an hour. Every species had different ideas, but none of them seemed to understand what they were really facing. Finally, Chancellor Vextar called for order. "Enough. While we debate, more colonies die. We need action, not endless discussion." Elena stood up slowly. Every alien eye turned toward her. She could feel their thoughts questioning what the newest species could possibly contribute to this crisis. "We volunteer for frontline duty," Elena said simply. The chamber fell completely silent. Admiral Throckmore's jaw dropped open. Professor Zindela's crystal body stopped chiming entirely. Chancellor Vextar spoke into Elena's mind. "Captain, your species has no experience with threats of this magnitude. You don't understand what you're offering to face." Elena kept her voice steady. "You're right. We don't have experience with galactic-level threats. But we do have experience with fighting when we're outmatched, and survival looks impossible." 40. Dr. Wright stepped forward to support his captain. "Human history is filled with battles where small, weak forces found ways to defeat much stronger enemies. We're good at thinking of solutions when normal tactics don't work." Admiral Throckmore laughed, but it sounded forced and nervous. "What can your tiny ships do against an enemy that makes entire star systems vanish?" Sarah Chen activated her tablet and projected her analysis onto the chamber's main display screen. "We've been studying the attack patterns. The enemy doesn't destroy planets directly. They drain energy from everything in a system, including the star itself." General Sultak moved closer to examine the data. "How did you determine this?" "Our reconnaissance drones use very low energy signatures," Sarah explained. "We sent them to the edge of the affected systems. They detected that the stars in those areas are burning much dimmer than before. The planets are still there, but they're frozen and lifeless." Elena continued Sarah's explanation. "This suggests the enemy feeds on energy rather than destroying matter. If that's true, then traditional weapons and shields might actually help them by providing more energy to consume." The aliens looked at each other with growing understanding and horror. Professor Zindela chimed softly. "You're suggesting our most powerful weapons would only make these creatures stronger?" "It's possible," Elena said, "which means we need to think about fighting them in ways that don't rely on high-energy systems." Admiral Throckmore's expression changed from mockery to interest. "What kind of ways?" Colonel Torres answered. "Kinetic weapons, chemical explosives, simple projectile systems that don't generate much electromagnetic signature. Old-fashioned tactics from before energy weapons existed." Chancellor Vextar opened his mind to the entire council. Elena could feel his thoughts flowing through her consciousness and connecting her to every other being in the room. The humans propose to fight an enemy that consumes energy by using weapons that produce almost no energy. Elena nodded. "It might not work, but conventional weapons and tactics have already failed. If we're going to try something different, it should be something the enemy won't expect." The council debated for another hour, but the outcome was already clear. Every conventional approach had failed. The mysterious enemy continued to advance toward the core systems, draining the life from every world they encountered. Finally, Chancellor Vextar announced the decision. A joint task force will be formed to test human tactical theories. Captain Vasquez will serve as strategic advisor to Admiral Throckmore. If the humans are wrong, we will face the same defeat that awaits us anyway. If they are right, perhaps we can find a way to fight back. As Elena left the council chamber, she couldn't shake the feeling that humanity's real test was just beginning. They had convinced the Confederation to try something new, but now they had to prove that their ideas could actually work against an enemy that had already destroyed 3 entire star systems. The weight of responsibility felt heavier than the gravity of any planet she had ever visited. Commander Marcus Morrison had served in the human space navy for 15 years, but he had never seen anything like the Moldak dreadnought, Blood of Khalis. The massive ship stretched for 2 miles from front to back. Its armor plating could stop weapons that could destroy planets. The crew called it unsinkable. Marcus stood on the bridge next to Admiral Throckmore, watching the other ships in their task force move through space toward the Kepler 442 system. 12 vessels from 6 different species had volunteered for this mission. They were going to test human theories against an enemy that had already destroyed 5 star systems. "Your people seem very calm for warriors about to face death," Throckmore observed. The massive Moldak's voice rumbled like distant thunder. Marcus looked at the small group of humans scattered throughout the bridge crew. They were working alongside alien crew members, checking systems and preparing for battle. "We're scared, Admiral. But fear doesn't stop us from doing our jobs." Throckmore's eyes narrowed. "Fear is weakness. A true warrior conquers fear before entering battle." "Maybe that's where we're different," Marcus said. "We don't try to conquer fear. We use it. Fear makes us careful. It makes us think faster and notice things we might miss otherwise." 3 hours later, their sensors detected the enemy fleet approaching Kepler 442. Marcus watched the main display screen as the sensor operators tried to get clear readings on the mysterious ships. "I can't get solid numbers on their fleet size," reported Lieutenant Zalneth, a young Zephyrian at the sensor station. "Their ships seem to absorb our scanning beams." Admiral Throckmore moved to the tactical display. "Show me what you can detect." The main screen showed rough outlines of ships that seemed to shift and change shape as they moved. The vessels looked organic, like huge living creatures swimming through space instead of mechanical constructions. "By the ancestors," Throckmore whispered. "Those ships are massive. Some of them are larger than our biggest dreadnoughts." Marcus studied the enemy formation. They're moving in a pattern that focuses all their ships toward the system's energy sources. They're heading straight for the star and the inhabited planets. Lieutenant Sarah Chen, who had been assigned to Marcus's advisory team, pulled up her tactical analysis. "If our theory is right, they'll try to drain power from our ships the moment we get close enough." The battle began badly for the Confederation forces. As soon as the 2 fleets came within weapons range, the alien ships opened fire with their most powerful energy weapons. Brilliant beams of plasma and particle energy lashed out toward the enemy vessels. The attacks should have destroyed the organic-looking ships instantly. Instead, the energy weapons seemed to make the enemy ships grow stronger. "Impossible!" shouted Commander Velkes from the Zephyrian cruiser. "Our plasma cannons did no damage at all." Marcus watched in horror as the enemy ships began to glow brighter. They were actually feeding on the energy from the Confederation weapons. Within minutes, return fire from the mysterious vessels began draining power from the Allied fleet. "All ships, cease firing immediately," Admiral Throckmore ordered. But it was too late. 3 ships had already lost power completely and were floating helpless in space. Marcus grabbed the communication microphone. "All human units, implement Protocol 0 immediately." Across the task force, the small human ships began shutting down every system except basic life support and maneuvering thrusters. The Terra's Vengeance, Marcus's own ship, went completely dark, except for minimal power to keep the crew alive. "What are you doing?" Throckmore demanded. "You're making yourself defenseless." "We're making ourselves invisible," Marcus replied. "Without energy signatures, their ships can't track us effectively." The human strategy worked better than Marcus had dared to hope. The enemy vessels, which had been moving to attack the powered-up alien ships, seemed to lose track of the humans entirely. The dark, quiet human ships drifted through space like debris. Marcus activated the short-range communication system that used very little power. "Sergeant Kozlov, are your Marines ready for the boarding operation?" Sergeant Anna Kozlov's voice came back steady and determined. "Ready as we'll ever be, Commander. My team has chemical explosive charges and kinetic rifles. If these things can absorb energy, let's see how they handle old-fashioned gunpowder and bullets." The boarding operation was the craziest military action Marcus had ever planned. Kozlov led 12 human Marines in small, unpowered shuttles toward the largest enemy ship. They used compressed air to push their shuttles forward, moving slowly and quietly through space. The enemy ship's hull looked like black metal mixed with organic tissue. It seemed to pulse with a slow rhythm, like a heartbeat. Kozlov's team used simple cutting charges to break through the outer shell and entered the ship. Inside, they found corridors that looked more like the inside of a living creature than a spaceship. The walls moved slightly, as if they were breathing. Strange lights pulsed through what looked like veins running along the ceiling. "This is definitely not normal ship architecture," Kozlov reported through her low-power radio. The Marines moved deeper into the ship, following the strongest pulse of the strange lights. They avoided using any electronic equipment that might attract attention. Instead, they relied on hand signals and whispered orders. In the center of the ship, they found something that looked like a huge brain, made of crystal and metal. Energy flowed through it in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "That has to be their control center," one of the Marines whispered. Kozlov nodded and began placing chemical explosive charges around the crystal brain. The explosives were simple devices that worked through chemical reactions instead of energy weapons. If the enemy ships fed on energy, they hopefully couldn't absorb the force of a chemical explosion. The bombs worked perfectly. When the charges exploded, the enemy ship shuddered and went dark. The organic light stopped pulsing, and the walls stopped moving. Within minutes, 2 more enemy vessels that had been close to the destroyed ship also lost power and began drifting. Admiral Thakmor watched from his bridge as 3 enemy ships went dead in space. Incredible. The humans destroyed them using primitive explosives. Marcus felt relief flooding through him. It worked because the explosives don't produce the kind of energy these creatures can absorb. Chemical reactions are different from plasma weapons or energy shields. The battle turned quickly after that. Other ships in the task force began using kinetic weapons and simple projectiles instead of energy-based systems. The Moldak warriors, who had always preferred close combat anyway, adapted fastest to the new tactics. But the real victory came when Kozlov's team rescued a group of Moldak warriors whose ship had been disabled. The alien warriors had been trapped in a damaged section of their vessel, facing certain death. The humans used their remaining explosive charges to blast through the wreckage and carried the wounded Moldak to safety. They did this even though it meant giving up their only weapons and risking their own lives. Admiral Thakmor watched the rescue through his ship's cameras. His expression changed from surprise to something that looked like respect. "They saved my warriors when they could have used those explosives to destroy more enemy ships," he said quietly. "They chose to save lives instead of winning glory." When the battle ended, 5 enemy ships had been destroyed or disabled. The rest of the mysterious fleet retreated back toward deep space. For the first time since the attacks began, the Confederation had won a victory. As the human and alien crews worked together to repair damaged ships and treat wounded, Marcus noticed something important had changed. The alien crew members who had looked at humans with curiosity or doubt now looked at them with respect. Admiral Thakmor approached Marcus as the cleanup continued. "Commander Morrison, I owe you an apology. Your people fought with honor today." Marcus smiled. "We just did our job." "Admiral." "No," Thakmor said seriously. "You did much more than that. You showed us a new way to think about warfare. And you showed us what it means to put the lives of others before your own glory." The big Moldak placed one clawed hand on Marcus's shoulder. "I would be honored to fight alongside humans again." News of the victory at Kepler 442 spread across the Confederation faster than the fastest messenger ships. Within days, every species in the Alliance was talking about the humans who had found a way to fight the unstoppable enemy. Dr. Yuki Tanaka never expected to become one of the most requested scientists in the galaxy. She was a xenopsychologist, someone who studied how different alien minds worked. Suddenly, every species wanted to understand the human way of thinking. Her first major assignment came from the Zephyrian High Council. Captain Lu Wei accompanied her to the crystal cities that floated in the clouds of Zephyria Prime. The Zephyrians had always been the technology masters of the Confederation. Their ships used the most advanced energy systems in known space. We must understand why our superior technology failed while your primitive methods succeeded, said Counselor Prime Nalthes. His crystal body chimed softly as he spoke. Our calculations show that chemical explosives should be far less effective than plasma cannons. Dr. Tanaka set up her research equipment in one of the floating laboratories. The difference isn't in the weapons themselves. It's in how we think about using them. She showed the Zephyrian scientists recordings from the battle. Watch how our Marines adapted when they entered the enemy ship. They changed their plans 3 times based on what they found inside. Counselor Nalthes studied the recordings carefully. Your warriors made decisions without consulting their command structure. This seems inefficient. Captain Lu Wei smiled. That's exactly the point. Humans learn to make good decisions quickly, even when we don't have all the information we want. To demonstrate, Liu Wei took the Zephyrian scientists to their damaged cruiser that had been attacked by the enemy. The ship's energy systems were completely drained, and normal repair procedures would take weeks. Your repair manual says this ship cannot be fixed without returning to a shipyard, Liu Wei said. That is correct, replied Chief Engineer Castell. The energy matrix has been corrupted beyond our ability to restore. Liu Wei spent 6 hours crawling through the ship's systems with a toolkit full of spare parts and what humans called duct tape. He bypassed 17 different safety systems, rewired the power distribution network, and jury-rigged a new energy matrix using parts from the ship's kitchen equipment. The repairs shouldn't have worked according to any engineering textbook, but the ship's engines came online, and all systems began functioning normally. Chief Engineer Castell stared at the impossible repair job. This configuration violates 12 different safety protocols. The energy flow patterns make no logical sense. But it works, Liu Wei pointed out. Sometimes, the best solution isn't the one that follows all the rules. The Zephyrians began requesting human engineers for all their repair operations. They called it creative problem solving. But Liu Wei knew it was really just thinking differently about what was possible. Dr. Tanaka's next assignment came from an unexpected source. The Veltar, who could read minds and emotions, were having serious problems working with humans in combat situations. Senior Mindweaver Shalneth met with Dr. Tanaka in a peaceful garden on Nexus Prime. The silver-skinned Veltar looked tired and stressed. We cannot understand human minds during battle, Shalneth explained. When we try to read human thoughts in combat, we experience something we have never felt before. What do you experience? Dr. Tanaka asked. Terror, Shalneth said simply. Absolute, overwhelming fear. Yet humans continue to function normally while feeling this way. Our minds cannot process how this is possible. Dr. Tanaka thought about her own experiences with fear. For humans, fear isn't something that stops us. It's information that helps us stay alive. She arranged for Shalneth to observe human training exercises. During a simulated battle, the Veltar Mindweaver connected to the thoughts of human soldiers. I can sense their fear clearly, Shalneth reported. They know they might die. They understand the danger completely, but they are using that knowledge to fight more effectively. Sergeant Anna Kozlov, who was leading the training exercise, explained it from the human perspective. Fear makes me pay attention to details I might miss otherwise. It makes me think about backup plans. It reminds me to check my equipment and watch out for my teammates. Shalneth was amazed. You transform negative emotions into tactical advantages. We have never encountered a species that can do this. Word of human psychological abilities spread to the Moldak warrior clans. Admiral Takmor personally requested that human instructors train his elite guards. This was unprecedented. The Moldak had never asked any other species to teach them about warfare. The training took place on the war world of Kethmol, where young Moldak warriors learned to fight. The planet was covered with training grounds, obstacle courses, and combat arenas. Marcus Morrison found himself teaching 8-foot-tall alien warriors how to think like humans. The cultural differences created some interesting challenges. "Your species believes that dying in battle is the highest honor," Marcus said to a group of Moldak students. "But humans believe that surviving the battle to protect others is more important." The Moldak warriors struggled with this concept. Their entire culture was built around individual glory and heroic death in combat. Master Sergeant Kozlov helped explain by demonstrating human team tactics. "Watch how we coordinate our movements. No one tries to be a hero by themselves. Everyone works together to make sure the mission succeeds, and everyone goes home alive." The Moldak students practiced human-style small unit tactics for weeks. Instead of charging forward individually to claim personal glory, they learned to support each other and adapt to changing situations. The breakthrough came during a live fire exercise. The Moldak students faced a simulation of the enemy ships they had encountered at Kepler 442. At first, the alien warriors tried to use their traditional tactics. They attacked directly with energy weapons and tried to overwhelm the enemy through individual courage. The simulation showed them all dying within minutes. Then they tried human tactics. They turned off their energy systems, used kinetic weapons, and coordinated their attacks as a team. The simulation showed a complete victory with minimal casualties. Master Warrior Graktor, who had been skeptical of human methods, stared at the results. "We achieved victory by avoiding glory instead of seeking it." "You achieved victory by being smart instead of just brave," Kozlov corrected. "Courage is still important, but courage without intelligence gets everyone killed." The training program expanded rapidly. Soon, warriors from every species in the Confederation were coming to learn human tactical thinking. The term human-style warfare entered the common language of 6 different alien cultures, but the most important change happened in how the species viewed each other. Dr. Tanaka's research showed that working with humans was changing the aliens' own thinking patterns. "The Zephyrians are becoming more flexible in their problem-solving," she reported to the Confederation Council. "The Moldak are learning to value team success over individual glory. The Veltar are discovering that negative emotions can be useful tools." Chancellor Vextar reviewed her findings with interest. "You are suggesting that human influence is making all our species more adaptable." "Exactly," Dr. Tanaka said. "And that adaptability is making everyone more effective against the enemy." As if to prove her point, news arrived that another joint human-alien task force had successfully defended the Rigel system using combined tactics. Zephyrian technology, Moldak courage, Veltar telepathy, and human adaptability had worked together to defeat a much larger enemy fleet. Elena Vasquez, now promoted to admiral, received reports from 12 different battle zones where human-trained forces were achieving victories that would have been impossible just months before. The small, weak species that had arrived seeking provisional membership in the Confederation was now teaching the galaxy's greatest warriors how to fight and win. More importantly, they were teaching everyone how to work together as something greater than the sum of their individual parts. 2 years after humanity joined the Confederation, the final battle came to Nexus Prime itself. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the command ship Humanity's Promise, watching the largest enemy fleet anyone had ever seen approach the capital system. Long-range sensors showed hundreds of the organic-looking ships emerging from the darkness between galaxies. At the center of their formation was something that made Elena's heart stop. "That's not a ship," whispered Captain Liu Wei, staring at the massive object on the screen. "That's a moon-sized creature." Dr. Tanaka checked her readings 3 times before speaking. "The energy signatures are off the charts. That thing could drain our entire star system in hours." 2 years of fighting had taught the Confederation much about their enemy. The creatures called themselves the Devourers in the few communications they had attempted. They traveled between galaxies, feeding on the life force of entire star systems before moving on. They had been dormant in the void for thousands of years, but something had awakened their hunger. Now they had come for the heart of Confederation space. Elena looked around the bridge at her crew. Humans worked alongside aliens who had become trusted friends and partners. Lieutenant Sarah Chen coordinated with a Veltar intelligence officer. Commander Marcus Morrison planned tactics with a Moldak strike force leader. Dr. Wright shared technical data with Zephyrian scientists. All ships report ready for battle, announced Lieutenant Commander Torres from the communications station. Elena opened a channel to the entire defense fleet. Over 300 ships from all 7 species waited for her orders. But these weren't the same separate fleets that had fought together 2 years ago. Every ship now carried mixed crews trained in human tactics. All vessels, this is Admiral Vasquez. Today we defend not just our worlds, but our way of life. We fight as one people, with one purpose. Remember what we have learned together. The enemy fleet reached the outer planets within hours. Elena watched in horror as they began their feeding process. The gas giant Nexus 7 started to dim as its energy was drained away. The mining colonies on the asteroid belt went dark one by one. Then, the real attack began. The moon-sized creature at the center of the enemy formation began to glow with terrible light. Energy beams reached out across millions of miles to touch Nexus Prime's star. The star itself began to flicker and fade as its nuclear fires were slowly consumed. If they drain our sun completely, this entire system will freeze, Dr. Wright reported. We have maybe 6 hours before the process becomes irreversible. Elena made the hardest decision of her life. All ships, prepare for close approach to the enemy mothership. We're going to fly directly into its core. The plan was insane by any reasonable standard. They would take a small fleet of ships right into the heart of the creature that was eating their star. The chances of survival were almost zero. Admiral Throckmore's voice came over the communications system from his flagship. Admiral Vasquez, my warriors stand ready to follow you into the void itself. Chancellor Vextar spoke next. The Veltar will provide telepathic coordination for the attack. One by one, officers from every species volunteered for the suicide mission. Elena felt tears in her eyes as she realized what was happening. These weren't just aliens following human orders. They had all become something new together. The assault fleet consisted of 50 ships carrying the best crews from every species. As they flew toward the massive enemy creature, they used every tactic that humans had taught the galaxy. The ships ran dark and quiet to avoid energy-based detection. They used kinetic weapons and chemical explosives instead of plasma cannons. Most importantly, they adapted their plans moment by moment as conditions changed. The enemy creature was like nothing any of them had seen before. It was part machine, part organism, and part something else entirely. Defensive systems inside its body attacked the intruding ships with weapons that defied physics. Hull breach on Deck 7, reported Torres, as the Humanity's Promise shook under enemy fire. Elena felt the ship shudder and heard the sound of emergency alarms. Can we reach the core? Captain Lu Wei worked frantically at his engineering station. The pathway is shifting like a living thing. We need to constantly change course to avoid being trapped. That was when the truly human part of the plan began to work. Instead of following a rigid attack pattern, the assault fleet adapted in real time. Ships that found blocked passages reported to other vessels. Crews that discovered new dangers shared the information immediately. The Moldak warriors fought with human-style teamwork instead of individual glory. The Zephyrian technicians used human-style creative thinking to solve impossible technical problems. The Veltar telepaths coordinated everything with human-style flexible planning. Sergeant Kozlov led the final assault team into the creature's core. The team included Marines from every species, all trained in human tactics. They moved through corridors that shifted and changed around them, adapting their plans with every step. At the heart of the creature, they found something that hurt to look at directly. It was a crystalline structure that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. Energy from millions of star systems flowed through it like blood through veins. This is it, Kozlov said quietly. This is what's been draining entire galaxies. The team placed their charges around the impossible structure. These weren't just chemical explosives anymore. Human engineers working with alien scientists had created something new. Weapons that could disrupt the dimensional bonds holding the creature together. As they prepared to detonate the charges, Elena's voice came through their low-power communicators. Whatever happens, know that you have honored every species in this galaxy. Admiral Talkmore's voice joined hers. To fight alongside humanity is to be honored beyond worlds. Today, we all fight as humans. The explosion tore through multiple dimensions at once. The creature's death scream echoed across space as its massive body began to collapse. The remaining enemy ships lost their coordination and began retreating toward deep space. Most importantly, Nexus Prime's star began to burn brightly again as the drain on its energy stopped. Elena survived, along with about half the assault fleet. As rescue ships arrived to help with repairs and medical treatment, she received reports from across the galaxy. The enemy mothership's destruction had caused all their other fleets to withdraw to whatever dark space they came from. The war was over. 3 months later, the Confederation held its victory celebration on Nexus Prime. But for Elena, the most important moment came during the formal ceremony. Chancellor Vextar announced the creation of the Honor Guard, an elite military unit that would always include members from every species, always fight with integrated tactics, and always carry the lesson of what they had learned together. More significantly, humanity's status was elevated from provisional membership to founding member of the Confederation. The highest military decoration became the Terra Cross, awarded only to those who showed human qualities of adaptability, sacrifice, and determination. The first recipient was Admiral Thakmor. As Elena watched the massive Moldok warrior receive the medal named for her homeworld, she understood what they had really accomplished. They hadn't just won a war, they had created something completely new in the galaxy. Years later, when new species applied to join the Confederation, they had to pass the human crucible, a test designed to measure not strength or intelligence, but adaptability and determination under pressure. The greatest compliment any warrior could receive became being declared fit to fight alongside humanity. Elena often thought about that first meeting where Admiral Thakmor had mocked humans as soft, weak creatures with nothing to offer. Now, children across the galaxy grew up hearing bedtime stories about the small, stubborn species that taught the universe how to fight the impossible and win. In the end, humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy wasn't their technology or their weapons. It was teaching everyone that sometimes the most important battles are won, not by being the strongest, but by refusing to give up when strength isn't enough. The Confederation had learned to fight like humans, and in doing so, they had become something greater than any of them could have achieved alone.